Howdy, folks. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. This is Dr. Richard Owen. Welcome back or welcome aboard. We are glad to have you. We got a studio full tonight, including Miss Ima Surefire.
Howdy, folks. How y'all doing?
And Uncle Bocce.
Howdy.
We are in the house and ready to go with a very exciting, lively, informative, maybe provocative radio show for you tonight. And the first thing I want to do is remind you about the Doc Owen Show presence on all of the social media. That is the best place to find us. That's the best place to follow us. The most secure place is probably Twitter. My handle is @DocOwenShow, because everything we do gets broadcast out there, so you'll get notices of it. Do not forget that we have a free downloadable app for both iPhone and Android platforms, which is a great way to listen to us live, as well as we have our entire library of podcasts out there, which stands for Play on Demand, so you can listen to it 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time, whatever you're comfortable with, and it's a real good way to keep up, is through the apps, which are no charge. We are continuing to work on the blog, and I'm expecting us to really, crank that up and have it rocking and rolling, hopefully by the end of the summer. It's kind of outside of our norm of what we know how to do, so we're learning as we go and getting better at it. So, expect some good things to happen there. All right, let's get her going. We will start off in our traditional manner, which will be Ms. Surefire and an inspirational quote. Take it away, madam.
Tonight's quote, as usual, comes from InspirationalDaily.com, and it's from a gentleman by the name of William R. Alger. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He was a Unitarian minister and author. And his quote is, "After every storm, the sun will smile. For every problem, there is a solution. And the soul's indefeasible duty is to be of good cheer."
That's inspiring.
It is.
I guess that was the intent.
Yes.
That's right. It worked.
That's why they're calling it an inspirational moment. Okay.
It worked.
Good job. And we've added, if you were with us last week, that was the first week that we did this, Uncle Bocce, the show historian, also has a little 1 minute or, very brief blurb called This Moment or This Day in History. And he picks out something that only he knows and thinks significant about this day somewhere in the past. Go for it, Uncle Bocce.
Okay. On this day in 1775, one of the first battles of the American Revolution occurred. And this was called the Battle of Brewster Island. The Patriot Minutemen, using whale boats commanded by Major Joseph O's, they raided Nantasket Point, also known as Little Brewster Island, which is an island in Boston Harbor. Okay. And they temporarily drove off the Brits from the island and also set their lighthouse to fire, the wooden parts of it to burn it down. They confiscated all the lamps, oil, gunpowder, and boats, and then they burned the Point's lighthouse down. Now, later on, they came back. The British were trying to rebuild, but they came back and took care of that. So that's what happened this day in 1775.
Okay, 1775, significant because it's ahead of 1776.
That's correct.
Which is a year that sticks in most patriots' heads.
Yes, sir.
So this was a build-up.
Yes, sir.
Or that we were already having skirmishes. We were,
correct.
Before the big breakup and the big fight, right?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what you're trying to tell us.
And of course, we'll get into that again
Sure.
sometime soon.
Oh, I'm sure. All right.
Okay.
I have one leadership quote from our friends at Crowned Grace International that I will share with you in a moment. But I also have one from my friends at the Optimist Club. And this one is under the section of a little book they gave to me called Failure. So the quote is, act as if it were impossible to fail. All right? That's from Dorothea Brandy, Brande. Ms. Brandy died back in 1948, as a matter of fact, but she was a well-known writer at the time. I like that. Act as if it is impossible to fail. You will hear people from time to time, at least I do, failure is not an option.
Yeah.
I don't know where that phrase came from, but that's another way of saying it. And from Crown to Grace International, truly on point for leadership, from Dr. David Schwartz, who was a motivational speaker and author. He says, the thinking that guides your intelligence is much more important than how much intelligence you have.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Think about
That's a
that.
good one. Yeah, that's true.
So it's about your core values is what I hear him saying there. Okay. Tonight we're going to have another conversation. Pardon me.
No.
Okay. You
Go
good?
ahead.
Tonight we're going to have another conversation with Nico LaHood that I think you will enjoy. So, be sure to hang around for that. And then we're going to obviously talk about some current events, also known as the Republican National Convention, which, due to the very nature of who's being appointed and what's going on, has been rather raucous for a bunch of conservative Republicans. So we'll get an opportunity to talk about that. And before we get there, we're going to have Uncle Bocce give us a 10-minute or so history lesson. Where are we tonight, Uncle Bocce?
Okay. Last time we finished with the French. We had talked about the Spanish. Now we're going to refocus ourselves back on the British and on the East Coast, the 13 original colonies.
Okay.
Just to review some background, the English actually arrived late as far as the colonies were concerned, because the Spanish, the Dutch, the Swedish, even the Portuguese and the French, as we have gone through some of those and seen they were all here before that, before the British came. Now the British.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
1492, Columbus came over in 3 ships.
That's correct.
Okay. Who were those people? Were they Portuguese? Were they Spanish?
They were. Well, Christopher Columbus himself was Italian.
Okay.
But he couldn't get the Italian government to.
You're welcome for the free plug.
There you go.
Bocce.
But he couldn't get the Italian government to back his exploration.
The Spanish. Who backed him? The Spanish, right?
Spanish, right?
Okay,
Queen
Spanish
Isabella and
I think,
Ferdinand.
and the reason I'm bringing that up, and I don't want to dig into your time too much,
That's
but the
okay.
reason that kind of rings a bell with me is you say the British were kind of late to come. We have a tendency to think that the British were here first, and
Yes.
it's all about the Brits and the Brits and the Brits and yada yada yada. But for what I'm hearing is for about 250 years, there were, and that's a long time. There were other people here, Spaniards and French, and that's why you took us through.
That's why
throughout the country,
right.
and that's why they were so much further out into the country
Exactly.
than the Brits were, because they were here first.
Exactly.
Well, why didn't you say that,
Yeah,
man?
they were. Why didn't I say that?
Yeah, did you?
Didn't I
tell us
just
that?
say it?
Oh,
okay. I'm saying it.
Okay,
tonight.
so we're back to the latecomers, the British.
Okay, so the British, they didn't arrive in the New World until 1607. Well, actually before that, but that was failed. In Jamestown, 1607. Remember back we talked about that.
Yep.
Okay.
I've
Now,
been to Jamestown.
Just to bring back to your mind, remember that all of the modern, what we consider the modern Southwest, including Texas and California, and we went through that was all controlled by Spain.
Right.
Florida also was controlled by Spain. And so these areas were peopled by the Spanish settlers.
Got it.
The entire expanse, and we talked about this also, between the Appalachian and the Rocky Mountains was New France. So
Amazing.
France had control of that.
Amazing.
Okay? Now, there were a number of different factors that contributed to Britain's late arrival. One of the things is in the 1500s and 1600s, England was not the most powerful European nation. In fact, it was probably the least powerful.
Get out of here.
Yes. At that time.
Must have been before the Bank of England.
Yeah, it was, yes. And Spain, of course, was the most influential. It was the superpower at the time.
Okay.
And along with Portugal, they pretty much dominated the New World.
That's why they funded Christopher Columbus.
That's correct.
Because they
That
had
is correct.
they had the shekels.
Mm-hmm. And then a third reason was France, Netherlands, and Sweden, they all showed a greater interest in Western Hemisphere than England did. England just lagged behind, okay. For whatever reason. Now, just a little bit of British history. Britain did have a lot of very adventurous sea captains. You might remember Sir Walter Raleigh and John Cabot. They did explorations, but they really didn't amount to much.
Okay.
So then what happened in England in the 1500s, that was when King Henry VIII was the tyrant.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, he was famous for breaking with the Catholic Church in 1533.
Famous song about him.
And became the head of the Anglican Church. Exactly. I was thinking of that same song, too, but I didn't want to go into tune.
You don't want
Okay. So this created decades of religious strife. And remember, that was one of the reasons why many of those who came to colonize from Britain was because of religion. Okay? Now, finally, under his daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, okay, the English now were prepared to take their stake in claims. Now, England was an island, okay, and it was therefore a seafaring nation.
I think it still is.
And it still is, yes, okay. And you would think, up against the Spanish, that England would have a more favorable power. But they weren't. The superpower, like I said, was Spain, especially the Spanish Armada.
Armada, yep.
Okay, which really made them a superpower as far as the sea was concerned.
He who rules the ocean rules the world.
There you go. Okay, so the British were satisfied with plundering Spanish ships. They figured that was a lot easier to gain wealth than to go 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean and set up,
let them do the hard work. Right. Okay.
Exactly. So we see that there were, so they'd like to plunder the ships rather than then the sea dogs came, and this is the Spanish Armada. Walter Raleigh, Francis Drake, and other guys, and then Philip of Spain. So they defeated the Spanish. They routed them. They had like 130 ships, and Britain had a lot fewer. But what turns out is that the British ships were easier to maneuver and were a little bit faster.
Gotcha.
Plus, they had the benefit of a huge storm. So they routed the Spanish Armada and kicked their butts. And they went back to Spain crippled.
How did they produce the storm?
I don't know. It's divine will, I guess. God said, no, Britain's going to be the one.
Okay.
So these sea dogs who were great mariners, great military guys, and they just loved the Spanish ships. So this brought England to a point where now they were ready, under Elizabeth. They were ready to come and settle in the New World. So that's a little bit of background. How are we on time? This is a good stopping point.
It is a good stopping point.
Okay. No, I can continue on here a little bit. Get into.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have stuff.
Got some more now? Oh yeah, well, he's always got stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now to get back onto the New England colonies. Remember the first colonies, the Pilgrims, the Puritans. We talked all about them.
Right.
We saw how intolerance in the Puritan, Massachusetts. Massachusetts
Yep.
was Puritan.
Right.
And how that sparked a further colonization.
Yeah, they thoroughly earned their name
Connecticut, right.
of Puritan.
Right, exactly. So there were rebellions that established Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. That came out of the Puritan.
As rebellions against the Massachusetts,
Exactly.
exactly, puristic view.
Exactly, yes. And then we had the middle colonies. Remember, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. In these colonies, there was a tremendous amount of diversity. There were English, Swedes, Dutch, Germans, Scots, Irish, French, Native Americans, and Africans.
Okay.
So it was very different for them. Unlike solidly Puritan New England, the middle colonies, they presented an assortment of even religions. There were the Quakers, the Mennonites, the Lutherans, the Dutch Calvinists, Presbyterians, and so on. So that area was becoming much more diversified.
Okay.
William Penn paid £1,200 to obtain what we now know as Pennsylvania. And because of their central location between the New England and the South, they really became the focal point of trade. And New York and Philadelphia grew at a fantastic rate.
Pennsylvania became the focal point of
the middle colonies,
right,
primarily.
Okay, there you go.
Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
New York, Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
And out of Philadelphia came brilliant people like Benjamin Franklin. Okay, and the South, they were entirely. We'll talk about the Southern colonies just very briefly, maybe next week, since our time is pretty much.
They're easy to section off.
Yeah,
because it's so different from what's going on
right.
elsewhere.
So even within the British colonies, there were very real differences.
Yeah, Southerners have always been Southerners.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. So,
Awesome.
How do they get a hold of you? Who are you? Where are you?
Oh, I forgot. Who am I? No,
We
I am.
Name tag.
Yes. I'm Uncle Bocce, and you can reach me at Uncle Bocce, UNCLEBACI, at DocOwenShow.com. I love hearing from you guys.
Well done, Uncle Bocce. Thank you, sir.
Thank
It's
you.
always appreciated.
You're very welcome.
We're going to take a very brief interlude, about 30 seconds, and push one of our show sponsors. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas.
Call 1-800-352-3127. Again, 1-800-352-3127. A fee-based company.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. We are glad to have you. Before we play a recent conversation that I had with Bexar County District Attorney Nico LaHood, which are always interesting. They're not really on topic local. Nico is a very well-educated young man. I think you'll enjoy the conversation. The first thing I want to throw out at you is listen very closely to the first 3 to 4 minute segment and Nico's reaction to some things that go on. Think Ted Cruz last night at the Republican National Convention if you either watched it or paid attention to the replays that are all over the internet, including, the pans and the yada, yada, yadas. But so listen to that, and then we will strike off into a conversation about Sharia law and some things about Islamists that you really need to pay attention to. So here we go with Mr. Nico LaHood. We open, I think, Terry Enriquez. Louder? Or no, it's on.
Well,
Terry,
you might want to check. I don't know what case you're talking about.
Oh, okay. That's
I might
fine.
not know it. I might not know what case he's talking about.
That's all right. We don't have to go.
Okay, yeah.
It's something that was opened up at the end of April, that SAPD reopened a cold case, and I thought that you had already weighed in on it or something. But
what are the facts?
Oh, well, you may have to speak up.
Yeah.
Because it was
a really nice story from the family's perspective, how you were a really good listener to them.
KSAT, was it on KSAT 12?
Oh, the family was
it?
like 24-year-old case? Oh,
Yes,
yeah, man, they're
yes.
wonderful.
They spoke very highly.
Yes.
When did you see them?
About a week ago.
You spoke with them in person?
No.
On the Facebook.
Really? I didn't see that.
Yes, on the Facebook.
I'd like to see them. They were, the mama is...
It was a day you weren't being a bully.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. Since I'm such a bully, right? She is a little bit of heaven down on earth. That woman she blessed me that day to me.
She spoke very highly of you.
She blessed me that day.
You know, that you listened, and which, no, I know that about you. A lot of people don't know that about you, that you're just as good at listening as you are talking.
Absolutely. I got 2 ears for a reason, not one, and only one mouth. I listen.
And we are all thankful for
Listen.
that.
But she's a wonderful lady. She has a tremendous faith in our Lord, and she's fighting for one of her treasures that any parent would fight for. Yeah. And she just had a peace about her. She walked into the room, and you could just see it on her face.
Oh, a peace, P-E-A-C-E.
Yes, peace.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
right.
It's the Philippians 4, 6, and 7 piece, the peace that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make any earthly sense. And she goes, I'm still going to do what I need to do to try to bring justice for my daughter, but there's going to be an eternal justice. She goes, I have zero doubt. But before I go meet the Lord, I wanted to know what I do all I can do. Yeah. I mean, she blessed me. I don't want to say how the conversation went. That's up to her to share. I don't want to try and get any brownie points for it. But she's just a wonderful soul. Well, I fell in love with her, man.
We wanted to bring it up because it showed a completely different side.
Sure.
That a lot of folks don't know, and we've always assumed that it existed. Not assumed, but known that it existed in our conversation. So
absolutely.
That was the reason for it.
Because you can study the samurai. I've studied martial arts all my life.
Right.
Most of my life. I won't over-exaggerate and say all my life. I mean, I started when I was in 6th grade or whatever.
Wow.
The vast majority of my life.
Cool.
And when you study the mindset of the culture of the samurai, he was humble, he was chivalrous, he was respectful, he was meek. Scripture talks about the meek will inherit the earth. What does meek mean? It just means humble and gentle. That's all it means. It doesn't mean weak. But the samurai had a big butt, right? But when he drew the sword, heads rolled.
That's right.
And so because I do not sit back to deception, because I do not look for a fight, but I don't avoid it. I mean, most people just say, I love that you're like that. You're just real. There's a very few out there that say, you're a DA, you're above that. What do you mean I'm above that? What does that mean I'm above that? I really don't understand what that means. Because my decisions and the fights that I engage in, so to speak, or the issues that I engage in, are principle-driven. It was never about genes. It was never about anything about responding to certain people a certain way or ignoring certain people. And I said this to a person yesterday. They go, Nico, don't you think that she just let some things go? And I said, let's address that. Let's address some of that. We see in this office every day, especially in our white-collar division. I'll give you an example. Golly, how did this guy screw these people over for $500,000? And you say, well, let's analyze that. Do you think that was the first time they did it? They didn't just start off screwing somebody out for $500,000. They got someone for $20,000, and someone said, let it go. It's not worth it. Yeah. I got my money back, or you know what? It's just going to be more hassle. Let me just move on. And then they got someone for $50,000. Yeah. Oh, let it go. It's not worth it. Then $100,000. And then so if you stand
started on Craigslist for $500.
Yeah, Daddy. So I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And so I can't stand deception. You and I have talked about that over and over again.
Yes, sir.
I stand for truth. And so if I stand up against deception, then I got to do it all the time. I got to be consistent about it. True. Now, at some point, I need to be wise. Do I engage in No, I think I've made my point with the Express News and Chasnoff and other people. I think now you say, look, I'm always willing to have an open discussion about any topic.
Right.
You know, unless the law forbids me to talk about something. I just don't run away from things because I stand on truth. I'm not perfect. I'm far from that. But I know my intentions. And when someone tries to tarnish this office's name or my name, the reason why I defend it to the end is because, number one, I wear the banner of a Christian. And so if you say something critical and defame me, it's not about me. You're defaming who I represent, which is Christ.
Right.
Number one. Number two, I carry my pop's last name, my family name. My 4 children, my wife, I want to honor them by having a good name.
Yep.
And so I represent them. I'm last on the list, I assure you. You know, it's always about someone else, either holding someone that's lying accountable, representing my Lord, representing my family, all those things. But me, I assure you, I'm on the last of that list.
That's the training I received a long time ago.
Yeah.
God first, the other fellow second,
That's
and I'm
it.
third.
That's it.
But I get your... I appreciate your defense because I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, and it's just about truth, Daddy. I mean, it's like, I'm just not going to enable bad behavior because do I do that in the office? So do I say, you know, we deal with big cases. We deal with people that get, you know, fraud, securing documents by deception. Well, it's like, okay, you know what, $500, that's no big deal. Let me let that go. That's beneath me. We're not going to worry about $500 in this office. Really? Is that what I'm supposed to say? We're not going to worry about only $1,500 in this office.
Well,
no, deception is deception.
No, I do think you need to draw the line. But if I'm ever in there, $500 is important. Then that's what everybody would tell you.
Absolutely.
You know?
And all I challenge people in a respectful way is, if the shoe was on the other foot, if someone was being deceptive against your child, your grandchild, or your spouse, your loved one, your brother, would you want
no holds barred?
Of course it would. I mean, come on, man. The hypocrisy is insane. So I just, you know, that's all.
Okay, so a couple of big topics.
Yes, big.
One, this after Orlando, which I'm sure you and I probably had the same reaction. You know, of grievance, and I mean, it was
horrible.
It was horrifying.
Yeah,
and has nothing to do in my mind. I didn't react immediately to the fact that it was the largest terrorist attack since 9/11. Really was not my immediate reaction. It was just, man, nobody, zero, deserves that. You know, and there should have been some way of providing a self-defense for them. And the reason I kind of frame it that way is the immediate charge against the guns.
That's so ridiculous. I mean, I'm so tired of this, and I really wish people would educate themselves and dig deeper.
Bingo.
I mean, look at this. We have a problem with DWIs in Bexar County. We do.
Yes, we do.
One of the highest DWIs in the state of Texas.
I know.
So would it be fair if the government restricts your right to buy a vehicle? Right. Because vehicles are used. You can't DWI or intox manslaughter, intox assault without a vehicle. Is it the vehicle or is it your heart? Is it your irresponsible behavior?
Right.
So when you default go to the object, I think it's a red herring. I mean, it's just a distraction. Why would you even think of going towards the object when, in fact, we know that we have an individual that pledged, and this is a whole separate topic, you want to talk about it, pledged their allegiance to ISIS.
Yes,
and,
I know.
And that one's
called 9/11.
Scratched out. That we'll talk about that after. And
the Attorney General of the United States is scratching that out when they present the information to the public.
That is shameful behavior.
Thank you.
Shameful. Look, if I did that, what if I did this? How about this?
You're done.
Now you got me on another topic, right? See, you got to keep me focused, man, because I was talking about everything.
I got you focused.
Look at this here. Let's say that somebody in Bexar County, God forbid, did a shooting, multiple people, and on the 911 call, they said, "In the name of Yahweh, Jehovah, which is the Christian God,
yes, sir,
I'm committing these murders, and I pledge my allegiance to whatever," and he shoots. Well, now, number one, there's no way they could look at any scripture that would justify that the person's just insane.
Right.
But what if I said, you know what, I'm going to change Jehovah and Yahweh to a general term of God.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I want to take out
because
this reference of the Christian coalition. I want to take out this reference to whatever it is. I mean, the facts are the facts. That's evidence. A prosecutor cannot change any of the evidence. Lady Justice wears a blindfold. That means whatever the evidence is, whatever the suspect gave us, whatever the scenario or the incident gave us, we get it and we analyze it and then utilize it fairly and appropriately to seek justice, period.
And I have to believe, I give up if I don't continue to believe, that the American public is capable of handling that.
Capable of handling what?
The truth.
Well, yeah. Well, even if they're not, it doesn't matter. I mean, the truth is the truth. Why would that? I mean, you can't think of it that way. The truth is.
You're
the
right,
truth,
though.
Right?
You're right.
I mean, think about this.
It is what it is, and
it's insanity. Look,
you must be.
It was horrific, and I did a post, because there are people that claim, and I'm going to use the word claim, and I hate air quotes, so I'm not going to do them, but they would be appropriate here.
Okay.
There are people that claim Christianity, that not a lot, but a section of them, that idiot from California that claims to be some preacher, was just spewing vile comments that could never be backed up in our faith. He was a complete imbecile, and I hope everyone leaves his church and he shuts down and goes repents to the Lord because he needs to. His comments were vile.
Yes.
And there was other people that had similar comments, right? Even some idiots on Facebook and stuff. And I said, that is insane. And you wonder why people have a weird misconception, and it's completely false, of the Christian faith. It's because you have not a couple, but a handful.
And those are the ones that make the news.
The Westboro,
yes,
whatever
sir.
that group of
these guys that protest at veterans' funerals and
these
stuff.
These people are insane. They can never rely on Scripture. They have to be clinically insane because they completely ignore truth, and they're delirious and delusional.
Right.
And so I think that they're probably clinically insane. I'll say probably because they deserve due process barely. And they're just asinine. And so I did a post speaking out on, I said, look, there was 50 Americans that were stolen from America.
Right.
In the Orlando shooting. Their families are grieving. And they don't need to hear some dumbass to say with your comments and misuse the Christian faith to spew vile hate and things. And so I seek truth, and I made a comment on it, and it was very well received from a lot of people. And because I stood on truth. And we had 50 Americans stolen from us. That shouldn't happen to any American.
Right.
And the reality is, this individual, the suspect who was taken out, pledged his allegiance to ISIS.
Yep.
He followed the Islamic faith.
Yep.
He was partaking in jihad. I don't care what anybody says. That is a fact. That is a fact. It's not a stretch. He said it. He made an admission. I mean, if someone says, so am I supposed to, if a defendant or a citizen accused admits to doing a crime, am I supposed to say, nah, they didn't mean it. Let me change it for them. Really? That's what I'm supposed to do? Of course not.
Right.
And so, again, you know me, Doc. I look for consistency.
Yep.
And that was just shameful. When I heard that was the objective, I just thought to myself, where the hell are we going?
Right.
Where are we going? I mean, that's ridiculous.
There had to be, and that's what that does is
it disrespects the victims.
Oh, totally. And what it really does is it gives credence to the conspiracy theorists that because they misdirect, so it's like that allows the conspiracy theorists to say, "See, I told you it was a setup. I told you it was a false flag. I told you it was put out there just so they could go after our guns." You know what I'm saying? They play right into their hands.
Look, this guy was insane.
Oh yeah,
he was intoxicated by an ideology that supports his behavior. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately,
he does. I mean, call him crazy, call him whatever. The ideology of Sharia law, the ideology under this thinking,
I know you know.
This backs it up. I've spoken very freely about that, and it's nothing that I'm making up. It's not like it's my opinion. And so that's why I say this is an American issue. Whether you're a liberal or whether you're a conservative, this is an American issue.
Okay.
This idea of
this
pushing, this ideology, this Sharia law, that behavior that this guy is backed up by the ideology.
Yeah.
I get it. Muhammad Ali is our American example of a Muslim. I get that, man. And he was a wonderful person. He obviously loved folks.
Yep.
You know, I don't know his heart. That's between him and God. But his behavior sure showed grace and compassion,
absolutely.
Right? But I
think he was that first.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Well, no, when I was upset. I was around and paying attention when he changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. And as Cassius Clay, he was the same thing. Yes.
But he obviously did not follow the 9th chapter of the Quran. It's there. Anybody can research this. Google it. The 9th. I mean, it's so much.
But if you're going to focus on that, you're going to wind up upside down with the rest of the world, I think. But
I'm just going to speak truth. I have a lot of friends that are Muslim. That's why I don't talk about Muslims. I talk about the ideology of Islam.
I know that.
And let's talk Christianity. Let's talk Hinduism. Buddhism. We can talk about Shintoism from Japan. We can talk about ideologies under different religions.
Right.
I don't talk about Muslims. I have a dear friend of mine. I have more than one friend, by the way, that's Muslim. And I asked my buddy just the other day, last week.
That's good, by the way.
Oh,
I think that's great.
Oh, well, of course I do, because I look at someone's heart.
Yep.
He obviously, I asked my buddy, I said, hey, I won't say, let's call him Joe. I said, Joe, do you know what Sharia law is? And he goes, no, Baba, what's that? I go, Joe, this is part of your religion. He's like, oh no, he was born. He's been Americanized, so to speak.
Right.
He does not adhere to the Sharia principles, and I don't think any American would want to, liberal or conservative. They're horrific, by the way. Yes. He does not adhere to the 9th chapter of the Quran or some of the other violent chapters in there, or verses. And he just didn't even know about it, but he wore the banner. And that's why, do you see why I don't talk about Muslims? Because
he wears the label.
He just has the banner, but doesn't understand the tenets, and definitely doesn't walk them out.
Right.
Just like there's a lot of people that wear the banner of Christianity, but they don't understand the faith, and they're hypocrites, and they don't walk it out. So I don't look at labels. Your behavior should back up the label. That's the way I look at things. It's always about the heart. It's always about the ultimate behavior.
I've always been very reluctant about labels and categorization and all that kind of stuff. That's not good. I mean, that just leads you down
I've been labeled my whole life. You know? I've been labeled my whole life, almost my whole life. I mean, from my poor choice when I was young and stupid.
But some of that you
losing
deserve,
my brother.
Nico.
Sure,
we're close. So
absolutely. Back then, right? To losing my brother, to other challenges that my wife and I have faced with our son who has special needs.
Yep.
I mean, so we throw labels around all the time.
Yeah, we do.
But it's the behavior, it's the mindset, it's the ideology, the worldview that I look at, and how that's going to affect America. And also, how does that comport with our Constitution? This is the United States of America.
Dude.
Based off the Constitution. And anything that sets itself up, and I say this over and over again, anything that sets itself up against our Constitution needs to be resisted by all Americans, liberal and conservative.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 877-212-5898. Again, 877-212-5898. That's 877-212-5898. 877-212-5898.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. We are glad to have you. Hopefully you heard the interview with Nico LaHood, the conversation that I had with him recently. During the first part of that interview, I heard some things that I thought extremely relevant to Mr. Cruz's presentation or speech at the Republican National Convention last night. When Uncle Bachi and I were talking about it before the show, correct me if I'm wrong, Uncle Bachi, your first reaction was, but they attacked his family.
Yes.
Right? In other words, in defense of Mr. Cruz, as to why he did not endorse, one of your primary defenses was they attacked his family. Right? Mm-hmm. Did you hear what Nico said?
Yes.
That was one of the things that was, and we were not talking about the convention. We were not talking about Ted Cruz. We were talking things in general, and things that Nico, a very bright young man, Democrat, that would not stand for, and that was people attacking his family, and he said that first, people attacking his Christianity, and people attacking his good name. I shan't forget what he said. All right? So your reaction may well have been the same, and that was Cruz's statement this morning when he was being harassed and harangued by the Texas delegation. He had breakfast with them this morning, and they really came down on him hard for not endorsing Donald Trump. And I think within certain bounds and limits, they're within their rights. I mean, Mr. Cruz, whom I've never met, but I was a backer of early on, and I still like his constitutionality. I like his Christianity. There's an awful lot of things about him that I like. But he might have a slight crack in his personality that doesn't blend well with what needs to be done in the Oval Office. I'm not saying that Donald Trump does. I'm just saying that, and Trump being the master that he is, and he absolutely is, he has an instinct for people all his life, and he instinctively found that crack. And the one thing that, and so what I think what Cruz was reacting to in the attack on his family was, wait a minute, that's not how we play politics. If you'll recall, forever and forever, the politician's family has always been off limits in terms of campaigning. Think about it.
Yes.
Very.
Trump is not a politician, but he is a strategist.
Bingo. Bingo. He is not a politician. He is not trained as a politician. He doesn't really like politicians because they are politically correct. But just like I learned in ethics school, there's a thing called craft ethics. Okay? And your ethical stance is determined by the craft that you practice. All right? Okay. If you're a preacher, you have one set of ethics. If you're a doctor, you may have... Now, all these ethics sort of are alike, but used car salesmen have a different set of ethics, all right, that are perfectly acceptable within their trade, within their craft. So what we have here is a situation where Mr. Trump did not practice the craft ethics of family being off limits.
Correct.
And it didn't sit well with Mr. Cruz, and still doesn't sit well with Mr. Cruz. And it wouldn't sit well with Nico LaHood either. You follow me?
Yes.
But we're in a different world where we don't have a politician as a candidate. We've got a reality TV star. We've got a real estate mogul. We've got a guy that his own son said last night doesn't really need the job.
Yes.
And he's the only one in the race who doesn't need the job. You follow me?
Yes.
So I was giving justice to your response of why Cruz is still withholding his endorsement, is because he felt like Trump crossed a line that was totally unacceptable.
Yes.
Good analogy?
Yeah, it's a very good analogy, and I look at it as being, rungs of a ladder. No matter, you have to put certain principles ahead of others. The principle of signing a letter to back someone who has attacked your family, I think, is a lower rung of the ladder than the principles by which you live your life. Okay? Now, I agree this is probably going to hurt him politically. Cruz, that is.
Yes.
However, I think he is completely justified in breaking that pledge because of a higher value.
He made the pledge because a pledge of higher value was broken. He made the pledge, he signed the pledge before this higher order thing was done. And then once that was done, that made the lower order signature null and void.
And that's in my opinion.
Okay.
People out there might not agree. You may not even agree. But that's how I look at it.
No, we don't. We're not really trying to convince anybody of anything. That's not what the Doc Owen show's about. It's about trying to analyze and come up with, maybe you haven't thought of it this way. And I had not thought of it that way, even when I was talking to you. And then in listening to what Nico had to say, it's like, well, this is kind of a universal thing. This is kind of a politician craft ethics thing. And the line was crossed. So time will tell. Time will tell. Certainly it was My first reaction last night was disappointment. I felt like Mr. Cruz was a bigger man than that. But now I understand. Maybe the family thing is a bigger issue than Ted Cruz wanting to be a bigger man in front of a bunch of people that, it's more important to him to protect his family, I get that, than it is to protect voters. And the three of us would feel the same way.
Okay, good.
Okay? I just wanted to cover that for just a minute. Democratic National Convention. Change the subject here for a minute. Okay? Still on National Conventions. It seems that I want to read to you some of the guests that are going to be speakers at the Democratic National Convention. Okay? In particular, Tuesday of their convention will feature the roll call vote and how Hillary Clinton has spent her entire career working to make a difference for children, families, and our country. There will be some guest speakers called the Mothers of the Movement. Participating include Gwen Carr, mother of Eric Garner, Sabrina Fulton, mother of Trayvon Martin, Maria Hamilton, mother of Dontre Hamilton, Lucia McBath, mother of Jordan Davis, Leslie McSpadden, mother of Michael Brown, Cleopatra Cowley, mother of Hadia Pendleton, and Geneva Reed Viel, mother of Sandra Bland. If you notice, all of these are mothers of people that have been killed by the authorities. Right?
Right.
That's just one thing to notice. Another thing to notice is something that the Doc Owen Show has talked about ad infinitum over the course of the last 3 years. Not all the time, but from time to time, I get up on a soapbox and talk about the breakdown of the family union, the family unit, and how detrimental that is to society as a whole. When I was reading this list of guest speakers, and I think there are 6 or 7 or 8, I've forgotten exactly how many there are, but out of all of them, only one mother has the last name of their child. Only one child has the last name of their mother, is a better way of putting it, right? That ain't right.
No, it's not.
And that's part of the problem. Okay? A major part of the problem. So when I read that, I'm like, it's obvious to me. I don't see how it can't be obvious to other people that, we have broken families. We have a broken members of society that are out there, not doing the right thing.
And the cycle repeats itself.
Exactly.
Over and over.
Just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, let's talk about
No, go ahead.
Republican National Convention. Tonight's the night, right? The Trumpinator accepts his nomination.
Yes.
We one of the most important things that I heard last night, one of the most on-point things was a brief little phrase put out by Vice Presidential nominee Mike Pence, who really seems to be a good guy. I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I agree, yes.
He is heart and soul conservative. His favorite phrase about himself is he is a Christian, he is a conservative, and he is a politician. What does he say? Christian, conservative, Republican, in that order. That's his pet phrase. All right. And one of the things he said about Donald Trump is that he knew Trump was the real deal, and that he was 100% behind Trump. The reason being is you can't fake good kids. And Mr. Trump, to his credit, and to the credit of his family, has some very smart, upstanding, participatory children.
Yes.
My mom always has this saying. She says, children are the reflection of their parents, and I
Right.
couldn't agree
Amen.
more.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
honor thy
Yes.
mother and thy father, one of
That's
the commandments.
true.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
So
a good one.
it's-
It all goes together.
Yeah.
But considering look at some of the other people that are in the same socioeconomic class as the Trump children are. Mm-hmm. Give me a break. I mean, these young people work hard. Their family. It's like the difference of night and day. That's why, among other reasons, that's why he has put them on stage, is because he wants the country and the world to know that this is the family that would like to represent the United States of America across their various generations. And the feedback on, there was one left to speak tonight, I think, Ivanka. If that's,
Ivanka, yeah.
Yeah, well, the least he could have done was given them some, names that were a little easier to pronounce. I mean,
Maybe she has a nickname.
Donald
Maybe she'll
Jr. is fine. Eric is okay, but for some reason the girls all are. Meliana, his wife. Meliana, I think is her name. Anyway, I think they've done a very formidable job of presenting a great first family.
Yes.
Now, and I don't see, I'm like Mike Pence. I'm not sure how you can fake that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Their
can't.
presence on stage and their comfort with who they are and their pride in their father is very, very obvious. Mm-hmm. And I think that is also to be commended. Mm-hmm. So Cruz took a nosedive. And some of the feedback is it may have been orchestrated one more time by the Trumpinator, which I wouldn't put past him.
Right.
He's going to let people do what they want to do. They reviewed Cruz's speech before he went up there, and so Trump knew he was not going to get endorsed. And big deal. He's won the nomination. If you want to
Exactly.
not do what you said you would do, that's on you. So I'm watching. I'm watching and paying attention to it, but not necessarily glued to it. Okay, I think it's going to be a long, hard, ugly fight. I think the United States of America. I hope that we come out on the other side of this in much better shape than we are going into it, because we're hanging by a thread.
Yes.
We really are.
Yeah, we are.
Our constitutional republic is hanging by a thread, and that was part of what Mr. Cruz was trying to say. That
Exactly.
That's what he feels strongly about. That's the reason he kept using the word freedom and the words liberty.
And to his credit, it's good that he laid out those principles.
Oh, sure.
Because
unfortunately, they were overshadowed by this nomination.
Yeah. But I question now as the Republican Party goes forward, what are they going to go forward with?
They've got a good, strong conservative platform.
They've got a platform.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to discuss what you and I talked about before the show.
Sure.
But we'll take the time, maybe next week, to talk about the whether the grassroots has been drummed out or not. I don't think that was the case. Okay. The platform itself is quite infused with a lot of grassroots conservative constitutional ideals, a lot of them, and Trump helped write them, and the opinions that we got from his children didn't. I mean, they're young adults, but an awful lot of what. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.